WCNC Charlotte. This is Flashpoint, where power and politics collide and the tough questions get asked and answered.
Thanks for joining us here on Flashpoint. I'm Ben Thompson. It has now been more than a week since Hurricane Helene clobbered the Carolinas. Our thoughts remain with our friends and family in the mountains this morning. Some folks still missing, thousands remain without power, and so many roads still closed. You can find the very latest on the recovery and ways you can help inside the WCNC app. And then coming up later, our Nate Morabito has more on the recent struggles of North Carolina state lawmakers in getting assistance to the places that needed it most after natural disasters like Helene. But we begin with the election, now 1 month away, and this morning we continue our coverage of the races you will be deciding. The state treasurer is a role here in North Carolina we don't often talk about on Flashpoint, but it's really important. The treasurer is solely responsible for more than $120 billion in state pension funds for more than 950,000 teachers, law enforcement officers, and public workers. They're also responsible for overseeing the state health plan, which provides medical benefits to 750,000 current and retired public employees. As you're about to see, the two candidates running for the role this year have very different ideas about how those massive funds should be managed. I am now joined by Republican candidate for North Carolina State Treasurer, Briner. He joins us from Chapel Hill this morning. Brad, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Sure thing. First off, give us your one-line sales pitch on why folks of North Carolina should elect you as treasurer.
We have one major financial challenge in this state, and I am uniquely positioned to solve it, and that's the performance of our pension plan.
I think both you and your opponent have agreed that the current treasurer, while you might be ideologically aligned with him, has been way too conservative when it comes to investing the people's money. How would you more aggressively fulfill this role?
So I'm not sure that aggressive is the right word. I think different for sure is true. What we need to be focused on is making 6.5%. That is the number, the percentage of return that makes the math work for our retirees and our taxpayers. And what we have been focused on is how many fees we pay to get there. We've always been a fiscally conservative state. We should be a fiscally conservative state. It's done many wonderful things for this state. And so I wouldn't advocate changing that, but I would advocate for focusing on making 6.5. Today, you can do that in the bond market. You go to get a mortgage today, you're going to pay about 6.5. And so we can do it pretty conservatively, but we need to do it.
Your opponent is an economist. What makes your background makes you a better candidate for this job?
Sure. It's as simple as the old difference between academic and a practitioner. I've spent 25 years building investment programs for UNC Chapel Hill, for a number of wealthy families throughout the Southeast, and for one of the top 5 richest people in the world successfully. So successfully, I was able to retire at 46. And so I've got those practical experiences on how you build these portfolios, how you build these investment teams, and my opponent doesn't. He's a nice guy. He's a smart guy. We generally agree on many policy issues. However, he just has no experience. In fact, he doesn't own any personal investments either.
And we did, in fact, ask him about that. He does, though, have the endorsement of the State Employees Association, teachers, police, firefighter groups. These are the folks really impacted most. I mean, and these are the pensions we're talking about. Why are they wrong about you?
Sure. Well, they don't know me is the first answer. So when I talked to the State Employees Association back in January and they decided to endorse Wesley then, they had known him for 7 years. They'd known me for 7 days. And so that had a lot to do with their decision. As you'll see, they haven't really leaned into this race. And I know why. It's because from a policy perspective, you don't have a huge difference. I have not done a great job of telling people what they want to hear. I am overly potentially focused on the financial matters at hand. And so when different groups come to me with proposals that we simply can't afford, I guess I haven't learned, and I'm not sure I will learn, to tell them in a nice way that maybe we can do it when we all know that we can't. So maybe I can work on my bedside manner on telling people no, but ultimately I think the right thing to do is tell them the truth, and I think at the end they'll come around.
The biggest role, of course, of treasurer is to manage the pension fund. We're, I think, just one of 3 states where it's managed by one person. You're advocating for changing that.
Yes. So 47 states, as you note, have gone to a different model. And what you see over time is that that model performs better. So in the end, I think we should learn from the successes and failures of other people and take what we can from those other models to get to a better answer for our retirees and our taxpayers. The sole fiduciary is something that worked a long time ago, but as we've evolved and seen financial markets get more complicated, vesting that level of responsibility in one person has two obvious problems. One, that one person probably needs help, needs a team, and needs to have the assistance of that team in evaluating investments. And two, vesting that much power in an individual leads to corruption. We have not had that in the state. We have had wonderful public servants in this role, Republican and Democrat alike. But the two other states that have this model have not had that experience. And it's because of the model they have empowered people to do bad things in their state, and they have people in jail as a result. And I don't want to ever see North Carolina get there. So both reasons are why we should move away from it. But ultimately, it's proven to be a better model to deliver performance for our taxpayers and our retirees, which is the goal.
Either way, though, I mean, you can choose the team you surround yourself with, whether it's the current setup or a different one. And critics would argue that the treasurer is accountable to voters, where this sort of other group would not necessarily be. Is that not a good thing?
No, you need accountability to voters. That's not what I'm saying. It's how you deliver that accountability to the voters is the difference. By vesting it in one person who can change every 4 years, what you've done is ensure that your investment strategy will change every 4 or 8 years. That short-term investing strategy is exactly what you learn not to do being a long-term investor. Having the fortitude to stick through tough times with an investment strategy that works is how you deliver long-term outperformance. Having a committee of staggered roles that is appointed by elected officials, and so it has political accountability, gives you that long-term perspective in a way that sole fiduciary simply doesn't.
You've described yourself as a conservative in every sense of the word. I think you've used the term anti-woke, which you hear a lot about. Why does that matter when it comes to something like this, in your view?
It feels good in investing to go with the herd and to do things that you think may solve the world's problems according to you. But ultimately, you see over and over again that those type of strategies do not deliver on the central goal of investing, and that is to compound capital for whoever the beneficiaries are. That's been true over and over again in so many different ways. The most recent is the green energy debacle we've been through, where you had a number of companies get formed that had no prayer of profitability in the long run and were really designed to capture subsidies that came to the Biden administration. And so for me, over and over again, whether it's green energy, whether it's what other flavor of the day there is, you have to be careful to make sure that you're focused on one bottom line, and that is delivering returns to our taxpayers and our retirees.
Republican candidate for North Carolina State Treasurer, Briner. Brad, thanks for coming on. We appreciate you taking time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Coming up, we hear from the Democratic candidate for State Treasurer, Wesley Harris.